Everyone, it's Jennifer Lahan with Lahan Home Team with your August real estate market update. So let's just go ahead and get started. All right, what is going on? So let's first talk about housing affordability. A lot of people are wondering, are houses still affordable right now because of all the appreciation going on? But when you look at the data, and again, you know I'm all about the data, you can see in the orange, this is during years where distressed properties were dominating the market. That was the housing affordability then. Now, if you go to today is in the blue, that's 2021, it's actually quite affordable. So things are looking good as far as those types of numbers go. Now let's look at buyer traffic. Now I'm going to give you a series of screens right now that I want you to see because I want you to see the change that has happened from April, May, June, and so forth. So you can kind of see what's been going on with the buyer traffic. If you remember back in the April report, buyer traffic was very strong just about everywhere. I mean, it was either strong or very strong, except of course in Delaware. But then let's look at May. You'll kind of see how the colors change. Now in May, you see it's still strong, but then it got a little bit less, right? And not as strong. So we had some states, actually several states, go from very strong to just strong. Now let's go to June. And now you can see it's getting weaker even more each month. Not completely weak. If you look at the colors, we're still in those strong and stable colors. But nonetheless, you're kind of seeing less of a buyer traffic each month as we went from April, May, and June. And that was where we talked about buyer fatigue because there weren't enough homes on the market. And so buyers, and we have those buyers that we're working with that kind of got tired with, especially with the competition and not enough homes on the market. So if you kind of look at these pictures, you can see all in one screen how we had the buyer traffic changing each month. Now let's talk about seller traffic. Now, this is the seller traffic from last month. So this was what I showed you in last month's presentation. You can look at here, we had some, it was starting to build up a little better than the previous month, but now I want you to see the change that's happened over the last month. So this was from our last report. See these colors? Now you'll see, look at that. This is good. We're actually starting to see stronger movements with the seller's market. Not so much here in Florida, but we're getting there. We are seeing a little bit more inventory, but this is good news because it's going to spread. And this is better with our seller traffic. This is good for the buyers. Let's talk about the house appreciation. The Federal Housing Finance Agency had a house price index at 18%. And then CoreLogic had 15.4%. And then we had Case-Shiller at 16.6%. Yes, home appreciations have been going up quite considerably this year, but we've been talking about that for the last few months. So let's just look at what the NAR's chief economist had to say. Given that the sales activities are coming down, we may be sensing some turn in the market. We are seeing less prevalence of multiple offers, and it is still a seller's market, no doubt, but, okay, still a seller's market, but people need to be very cautious how they price their home to attract buyers, knowing that these sales activities are declining somewhat. All right, so now let's look at months of inventory of homes. Now, as you see, I've used this graphic before that we have had times where we had a seller's market and we've had times where we had a buyer's market. And you can look at that right in the red. We all know those years. And then we've been in a seller's market for quite a while. But the good news is if you look down at the bottom, if you can see my little cursor there, it's going up a little bit, heading up. That's good. And like I said, I think we will eventually see a little bit of a change, and we are starting to see in some states a change in the market. So again, at a broad level, home prices are in no danger of a decline due to tight inventory conditions, but I do expect prices to appreciate at a slower pace by the end of the year. Ideally, the cost for a home would rise roughly in line with income growth, which is likely to happen in 2022 as more listings and new construction become available. So again, another opinion from the NAR's chief economist. Now, let's talk about sales. All right, let's talk about average days on the market. This has been a pretty typical map I think we've been seeing most of the time. not a whole lot has changed. Homes are still not on the market for extremely long periods of time. I really am anxious like in a year from now to see what this market report is going to be showing you, because things will change over time, which you have seen with the buyers and the sellers. All right, existing home sales. Again, Northeast. Now the Northeast is doing very well. If you remember, I guess it was a few months ago, the Midwest was doing very well. So now we've got the Northeast, and overall, U.S. is doing 22.9%. South is still doing pretty good, but not as good as the Northeast. What about existing home sales? Now, these are in thousands, but it's just showing you, if you look from, well, this is showing you the dark blue is 2019. Medium type blue is 2020, and then our lighter blue is this year, 2021. You can see the change in just over the last couple years with our existing home sales. So if you look at the light blue, we are starting to, right, each month we're still increasing with that. So nothing is really changing. We still have a strong market, but we are starting to see more inventory, which is good if you are a buyer. But again, it depends on your state. What about new home sales? New home builders have been doing great, and I think I've been talking about that for the last few months. They are selling out. I know Brett and I just built in a new neighborhood, and they've got a wait list now. So I'm glad we got in when we did, which was about 8 months ago. But they're doing strong. But if you see, I'm just going to show you with my cursor here. April, May, and June, they actually saw a decline. So we're looking at that, a little bit of a decline there, slowing down. Look at total home sales. So this is everything. If you look again, the darker blue is 2020, and then you've got the light blue, which is 2021. Total home sales still doing very well. If you noticed, our June of this year is pretty much matching. So June is almost catching up to July of last year. So not too bad. We'll see what happens in the next month. Now let's talk about home prices. Existing home prices. So if you look again, the Northeast up at 23.6%. That's year over year. So this is by region. And the South, 21.4%. U.S. overall is 23.4%. Now let's look at Case-Shiller. This is the year-over-year price changes. So if you look from June, July, and then this is from last year, and then we keep going through this year all the way up to May, we went up to 17%. So pretty good. I mean, but we're seeing a lot of increases over this year, over the last year, really. And then if you look at the year-over-year change in price, you've got the current. The current is at 17.2%, but look at the forecast. Again, we've talked about this last month. The forecast is that eventually it's going to go back down to our normal or typical levels, right? Which is about 3.2%. So that would be good if we do see that. How about housing inventory? So this is inventory of homes for sale. And if you look over the last 12 months, we did have some low inventory, right? For December and January, those were the hurting months if you were a buyer. But notice that our inventory is getting better. We're starting to get close to where we were last fall. Still not great, but I'll take the improvement. And I'm sure a lot of people who are buyers will too. What about interest rates? We always have to talk about interest rates because they change, right? I mean, we've got our forecasts, but they always change when we get to that particular time. Right now, third quarter, we're looking at an average of about, 3.1%. But then if you look back down to 2022 second quarter, they're looking at about 3.58% is the projection. Still excellent rates. I mean, excellent. And again, looking in our chart just to see how it's been going. Each month we kind of look at the chart just to see the changes. We've got the same ones we see over the years, right, up until 2021. But you can see a very steady, that's like linear right there, increase in the rates over the last year or so. What about average FICO scores? Right now, this is for, again, loans that have already closed. But your average FICO score for conventional loans is about 758. And if you look at FHA, you're looking at 677. All right, here comes the time for the update. I'm trying to be as brief as I can with this. So Here's our Orlando update. Let's look at Orlando sales. Again, blue is 2020, orange is 2021 this year. Now, notice what we're seeing. January, February, right? And all the way to March, we saw this huge increase. But sales went down a little bit all the way through May. June, we saw a big spike. So look at that one. That's been the most for the year, which I think is pretty much typical for our inventory because that summer we tend to see more purchases. And then July, we saw a decline in sales. Still high, but yet it's a decline compared to June. What about the average sale price? So when you look at the average sale price, we actually saw a slight decline from June to July. So we saw a decline in sales and a decline in price. Now, that might indicate some sort of steadying, right, with some of our sales price, but only time will tell on that and what we're going to see. All right, again, summer's actually almost over. So if you want to see any of the buyer and seller guides, they're completely free. Just email me and I will send them to you. Before you know it, actually probably in a month or two, we're going to have the fall summer guides. Any questions, just give us a call at the number you see. Otherwise, feel free to visit our website at lahanhometeam.com. See you guys next month.